What's in a name poetry? We are going to use adjectives to create an acrostic poem with our first names. Acrostic poetry is a pretty simple style of poetry that anyone of any age can create, and the two basic things that you have to do is choose a word. We will be using our first names, and two, write adjectives or short phrases to describe the first word, or our name, using the letters of the first word as the first letter of those adjectives. I know that sounds kind of complicated, so why don't we look at an example that I've prepared. This example uses my first name, which is Jessica, and several adjectives to describe myself. So here, the first letter of my first name is J, and so I chose the example adjective of jazzy. So what did you see? Did you see the large red letters that were on the left-hand side that spelled out my first name, Jessica? Did you notice that they were vertical or up and down? Also, did you see the great words in gray that had the very first letter in red? Those words were adjectives. Did you recognize those as adjectives? So what it means is Jessica is the noun that we are describing, and that the words in gray are the adjectives that describe the noun, or Jessica. Some quick definitions that you might need. Noun, a content word that can be used to refer to a person, place, thing, quality, or action. Adjective is a word that expresses an attribute of something. Something to explain these words is a little bit more simply is a noun is a person, place, or thing, and an adjective describes a person, place, or thing. So let's begin. First, you'll need to write your name vertically on a piece of paper. Remember, each letter of your first name needs to be capitalized. This will help to emphasize the adjectives that you have chosen to describe yourself. And have some fun with this. Write your name in any color that you want. So on your paper, what you should have is your first name written vertically, like I've done with my name here. Next is the fun part. Now we get to write adjectives. We get to pick them out and pick out words that express who you are, and I really find this to be fun because I get to express and expand my vocabulary. However, not everyone enjoys picking out adjectives, and sometimes it's hard to choose what word to use to describe yourself. So, I've made things a little easier. What I've done is I have made some links to a website that will give adjectives that start with each letter of the alphabet. So, I needed an adjective that started with a J because my first name starts with J. So I'm going to click on the J. And here I am at a very handy website called adjectivesthatstartwith.net. And here it took me directly to the J page, and only fifth on the list is jazzy. Jazzy is a word that I use to describe myself. Now, there's one letter that's really tricky, and it's the letter X. Sometimes it's hard to find an adjective to describe a person that starts with the letter X. So what you can do, if you have an X in your name, is you can find a word that has an X in it that makes the X sound, but doesn't necessarily begin with the letter X. The word that I decided would describe several people is exciting. Now, how you would write this on your paper is how I've shown here, where your X is capitalized and it's in the color of your choosing, and the first letter E is small and lowercase, and it is on the left-hand side of the X. And then there's the letter X, and then there's the rest of the word following that is still lowercase and in the same gray as the rest of the adjectives. sometimes it's important to look up the definitions of the adjectives to make sure that they really do describe you. And so I like to use dictionary.com, which is an online dictionary, and it's the one that I've chosen here. And since I used the word jazzy, let's look up jazzy. Jazzy, pertaining to or suggestive of jazz music. Well, that definition doesn't quite describe me, even though I really do love music and especially jazz music. However, the second definition is active or lively, and I am most definitely active and lively. So let's see the adjectives in action. I have chosen jazzy, eclectic, sensational, smart, imaginative, curious, and awesome. I think that all of these describe me pretty well, but maybe you don't know what eclectic means. So why don't we go back over to dictionary.com and put in eclectic. Selecting or choosing from various sources, made up of what is selected from different sources. I think that these two describe me because I like to choose things from everywhere. I think that I'm smart and I'm fun and I'm energetic, and yet I also like to sit and relax, and I like to look at odd things and have interesting little figurines to collect. I really, really like collecting frog things, and not everyone likes that. So I think that's kind of different. And so I think that eclectic still fits me. Sensational, smart, imaginative, curious, and awesome. Remember, you can choose any words you want to describe yourself as long as you can explain how they describe yourself. And I just jazzed it up a little bit by making the first letter of each word capitalized like it needs to be, and I also decided to make them red to make them pop a little bit more, and I made the rest of the word a very cool and soothing gray. And here is the example that I showed you before with everything all jazzed up. And wow! That is just so easy to do, isn't it? Now you know how to make an acrostic poem. Be sure to keep those adjectives flowing, because they help spice up everyday conversation.